Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beneath Vancouver Radio. This is episode number 64, again, hosted by yours truly, Aaron. In today's episode, I have Chloe from the Permanent Ray Press. Chloe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? We were just talking. Yeah, I unfortunately ran errand behind schedule
No,
because I
no,
had
no.
to change locations, but thank you for being so accommodating.
No worries, no worries. Happy to have you on the show. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Nice Saturday morning. Just right before the end of, I guess, summer or August. Still gonna get some sun hopefully in September, but yeah, I'm excited to hear a little bit more about your story. I know we've been chatting a little bit on Instagram, and that's kind of how you reached out. So I do appreciate you doing that as well. But without further ado, let's kind of jump right into it and get this podcast started. This episode started. Chloe, who are you today?
I am a public servant by day, and by night, I am a music and entertainment journalist or hobbyist. I am constantly learning both as an individual and as a content creator, and today I'm just happy to be here.
Excellent. So let's, I guess, get a little bit of an origin story on what exactly like the permanent reimpress is. I know you gave me a little bit of a rundown when we first chatted, but I'm sure the listeners would love to hear more about kind of what it is you do. I think you also founded that with your sister, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, give us a little bit of a rundown of what exactly it is that the permanent reimpress does and kind of how that all started.
Yeah, well, the Permanent Rain Press, we recently turned 9 years old, this past spring,
Congrats.
but thank you. It's like a little baby. But we started in 2011. I want to say we had both been writing for our high school newspaper, shout out to the Mosscrop Prowler at Mosscrop Secondary, and been writing for other online music publications at the time. We've always had an interest in music, film, and TV. We used to do extras work on film sets in Vancouver. We've
Hmm.
loved going to concerts, listening to music. Who doesn't at that age when you're growing up? But we decided that we wanted something to call our own, just to be able to have that creative freedom and make decisions. And there was a time in 2011 where I got the opportunity to interview an actor for our school paper, and it was featured in the province newspaper, if you know
Hmm.
what that is, which is super random and big for me at the time. But I really loved interviewing people. And that actor was Chris Silka. He was here filming a TV show. And so we kind of decided, let's do it. Let's create something we can call our own. So we bought a domain. We made the Permanent Rain Press on Tumblr, which is the
Oh,
platform
that's
we
a
actually
throwback.
it is, and we still use it today, which is crazy because everyone's moved to places like WordPress, but we're still on Tumblr. But our websites we don't consider them Tumblr posts. They're just website posts that just happen to
Hmm.
be on Tumblr. We invested in a Canon DSLR camera, which might also be a throwback now, based on the version we have. But that's kind of where our origin story started. We've grown a lot since then. We have a team now of 14 people in total. And yeah, that's kind of it. And we've continued to evolve and create more content and branch out. But that's where we began.
No, that's a great story, and I think as well, like back in you said 2009 is when you started all of this, right?
2011,
Yeah,
probably.
or 2011. Sorry, in 2011, like the internet definitely is not what it was today, or even what it was like 5 years ago. So that's like very early, almost pioneer status when it comes to the ability to yeah, Wix and WordPress and all those like Squarespace. There's not a thing back in 2011. So the ability to make a website off using Tumblr and just being able to adapt, I think, is a testament of the passion that obviously you have and your sister have when it comes to what it is you do. So you started obviously in 2011 and made the website, bought the domain, etc. What were kind of like the first steps in actually, because I again back then, like independent media was not really a thing, right? You have now, the Daily Hive, at least locally here, like the Daily Hive, other kind of independent media platforms where arguably most of the people get their news now from them instead of like, traditional global, whatever, more government ran, I guess, media platform. So what was kind of that, not transition, but that period of where you have to actually reach out to people and be like, hey, I want to post your interview on our website. Like, how was that kind of conversation?
It was tricky starting out. I think we both didn't go to school for media. The most is taking things like creative writing and
Mm-hmm.
university later on. I took marketing, but starting out it was tough. We really focused on reaching out to local musicians, or if not reaching out, we would write about local musicians. So that's kind of our mandate since day one, to support independent artists from BC. And now we branched out and do artists in the UK, elsewhere in Canada. But I think
Right.
it starts with doing the hard work. So we found artists, we sourced them from places like Bandcamp, another throwback, using the location tag of Vancouver or Victoria or BC. So we decided to write about those artists and then let them know on social media, or maybe send them an email. Hey, we wrote about your song. Feel free to check it out. And I think that's kind of how
Mm.
word of mouth spreads with independent media outlets and music blogs, because people see what you're writing and then they tell their friends who also might want coverage in the future. So that's kind of where that portion started. We wrote a lot of clickbaity articles in the past, ones that we'd read who
Before
got
clickbait was
cast.
even a thing.
I know, we would read who got casted in TV and movies, like on Deadline or TV Line are the major outlets. And then we would paraphrase, add some sentences of our own, and post it on our website. But really, today that's not what we stand for as a website. We honestly also don't have the time to do articles like that, be a media outlet for entertainment news or music news. Like,
Hmm.
let's say Taylor Swift drops an album, that's not really what we do. So we kind of veered away from that. For interviews, it was really tough. But I look at what I sent before for interview requests to publicists and managers, and I kind of laugh at just how generic or basic it was. Hello, we are a website in Vancouver. Can we interview your client in Vancouver? So I've come a long way from that, really learning what works, a proper media kit. Everyone looks at analytics and stats nowadays, but yeah,
Hmm.
starting out, to answer your question, starting out was a challenge. I think it's really finding out what works for you, but also just growing and enjoying the process it takes to where you get today.
Yeah, growing and enjoying the process. That's the name of the game, and that's what we talked about in this previous episode with Hetty from Pasta Padella. She's loving the process, and that's really her growth, right? She enjoys it day in and day out. Although there's obviously ups and downs within that. That's what kind of keeps her up or not keeps her up, but kind of wakes her up in the morning and excites her for her day, is the ability to know that it's whatever she went through yesterday is going to be completely different to what she's going to go through today. And I like as well, I was actually going to be a follow-up question, but you kind of answered it in the previous answer there, regarding actually finding the musicians and the artists and stuff like that. Because, today, again, I'm gonna do a comparison. Today you can just go on Instagram, search the hashtag Vancouver artist, or however, what other hashtags might be relevant to obviously artists and musicians within our community, and you can find a lot of people. But then back then again, Instagram, I think, was already, no, I'm not sure actually. I don't think so. I don't think it had launched yet. If it had launched, it definitely is not the intricate platform that it is today. So if it would be in its infancy. So Bandcamp, I guess. So it's just like a website where you go and then people post. Like, I'm not too familiar with that. Why don't you give the our listeners a little bit of a quick breakdown on what Bandcamp sounds like?
You're making me feel old because I'm explaining what Bandcamp is, but it's essentially a place where people can post their music and they can actually sell their music off their like songs, EPs, albums. It's just a platform
Mm,
that not as many artists use nowadays, because now there's
right.
things like Spotify with streaming or just Apple Music. But yeah, they can post their music on Bandcamp. They can even sell like merch and things like that, but Bandcamp's also a streaming platform, so people can just share their music on there. And there's the tag, location tag, genre tag. So if you're looking for pop music
Mm.
or R&B music, that's a way that you can filter it down as well. But yeah, Bandcamp and Twitter, I would actually say was another one. We just be searching in the quotations Vancouver music, new Vancouver band, etc., etc. So it was a lot of work
Yeah.
to locate people initially. Also, just we had known a lot of local artists at the time, not personally, but just by name because of the local music scene. We had known artists here and there. So seeing what fellow bands they played shows with in Vancouver, that's another thing. We were liking a lot of pages
Hmm.
on Facebook to kind of get immersed into new releases. So those are the three main platforms.
Yeah. Is Bandcamp still up and running right now? Do you know?
It is, yes, it
It
is.
is?
So sometimes we still go on there, but not as much as before. Just as you mentioned with Instagram hashtags, it makes it a lot easier to filter down. But it's still alive and kicking, so I recommend checking it out. Like honestly, though, a lot of artists do still use Bandcamp, just not as many as before, and probably a lot of
Hmm.
them are more independent artists. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. I'll maybe check it out. Again, I never heard of the website until today, so I'm intrigued to see kind of like the layout and everything like that.
Yeah, the interface.
Yeah, the UI. See if it's maybe the still the same from 2011. Who knows? What's been kind of a question that I wanted to ask here is obviously as we've been talking about the differences between the early days to where you are today. Would you say that you prefer kind of the way that it how quote unquote easier it's been to reach out to people now, or do you prefer kind of how it was back in the day where maybe it was a little bit more of an authentic connection? Because I feel like now with Instagram and all these other platforms, a lot of people do just reach out kind of either they have bots do it. I get a couple spam messages every other week. Just like, blah, 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 wants you to, be an influencer or post this, be free, et cetera, et cetera. Do you like I'm going to use the good old days, or do you prefer kind of how it is now?
I think that I do prefer the new media landscape just in terms of the functionality and cutting down on time it takes to research and find artists.
Hmm.
I will say that a lot of what we do doesn't happen without the past though. So a lot of
Of
artists who
course. Yeah.
continue to reach out to us today are people who we've written about for the past 4 to 5 years. So
Hmm.
doing the hard work initially makes it easier today. And in terms of finding artists, just with the I want to say saturation of, new PR marketing agencies, we
Hmm.
just get a lot of press releases in our inbox. So in that sense, it is easier. It is easier to find people on Instagram. Like you mentioned, there's so many people just reaching out. Some of them might be spam messages. But when
Yeah.
artists take the time to kind of see what you're doing through hashtags and then reach out to you through email, we get a lot more people reaching out to us than us having to do that legwork. So I think it works both ways. We definitely do still actively look for new artists to feature. I don't think that will
Hmm.
ever kind of stop, but with the new reach and Twitter and Instagram, I will say we don't use TikTok, which I know is a way that people find new artists nowadays.
That's
And
been exactly. I mean, sorry to cut you off, but like all I listen to the rare times I do listen to the radio, I try to avoid that. Whenever I'm either going to the gym or going to work or whatever, all I hear now is just TikTok songs, right? So I think that's the top 40 now, right? The latest trendy TikTok songs.
it definitely is. And there are platforms or blogs out there who primarily interview people who they find on TikTok. So I mean, that's a whole new thing in itself that I won't
Yeah.
get into because I'm not an expert and don't use TikTok. Might be missing out on that part of the market there. But yeah, just it's easy and it's fun. Like I don't think it's a chore because sometimes you just hear quick 30-second clips of songs and you can get a feel for, if it fits with your brand or the artist that you
Right.
like as an individual. So I do prefer today, but it doesn't happen without all the work in the past and all the iterations of platforms.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, the evolution of platforms aside, but just the evolution again of like the internet really in the last 10 plus years has definitely created a different way that we consume content, that we create content. Different aspects of our life now are, again, even now more than ever, obviously because of what's going on in the world with the pandemic, is even more focused online, right? So I think moving forward for a lot of people, it's a concept of getting the information online, but also being able to see like what way can I get more than just like at the surface level, because there's obviously a lot of different independent media platforms, or even just solopreneurs, I'll call it, who have amazing stories to tell and are sharing great things online. But since it's, I would say, again, as you said, a little bit saturated now, especially on Instagram, and stuff like that, it's harder to get your name out there, right? Compared to, again, maybe 5 years ago. So I remember when I started, beneath Vancouver, it was kind of like, it was at the very early stages of almost kind of that rise and peak of what Instagram is right now when it comes to the amount of people using it and stuff like that. It was a lot easier to get like natural traction, as opposed to now. Like if you're not using Reels, or if you're not, sponsoring your posts, it's definitely a bit harder. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these platforms, they go up, they go down. There's different fads, different, obviously, favorites. Right now, it's, I would argue, TikTok. So who knows in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years what that new platform might be and stuff like that. I mean, look at Clubhouse, right? People were saying that it's, this new thing, and I don't even know anyone anymore that's actually actively using that platform. Were you on that Clubhouse trend at all?
I was not on that
Okay, you
trend.
did you
Yeah.
did not miss a thing. Don't worry about it. It was
Some of
nothing
these
special.
things are one and gone. It's crazy. It's funny. Just in terms of trends, we were talking to an actor a couple weeks ago, and then he said he thought that the fashion of what was it, Party, or what was that band that sang? It was like this duo, and I can't remember who they were. Party rock anthem? Yeah, that era.
Oh
And
yeah,
he thought
LMFAO.
that that party rock anthem, that fashion would be cool forever. And then it was quickly not, like let's say within a year or so. So just that whole kind of trend movement is, yeah,
Yeah,
it's something to think about.
for sure, for sure. I mean, that's when you're involved in the internet space, at any capacity. Obviously, you have to stay on top of that, right? Regardless of, for me, for example, I don't actually even post my podcast on TikTok, but I've been seeing a lot of successful podcasts. Again, the term successful I use just by in the sense of, growing your audience a little bit and stuff like that through the platform. A lot of great utilization of that platform for podcasters. So, it's something that, whether I like it or not, it is a market, as you mentioned, that I'm unfortunately missing out on. So, it has been a goal of mine this last kind of couple of months of this year to figure out a plan to tackle that platform. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then it is what it is. At least I gave it my all when it comes to at least trying that strategy out. So, um, what's been what's been kind of like the not the rewards, but I guess like the high moments of the last nine-ish years of doing what you're doing. Like, has there ever been a point of where you look back? Hopefully, there has, where you look back and think to yourself, like, wow, like we started on very early stages on Bandcamp, doing this, doing that, trying to find people. What's been kind of like that milestone moment where you realize like we've come a long way, and I like to actually follow up that question as well with how you actually came about of organizing a team, right? Because I think for a lot of the people that we have on the podcast, usually they're solopreneurs or a small team of one or two, or if they do have like people within their team, it's I would say like a family setting already. So people like yourself and your sister, obviously that's a family setting. But I'm gonna take a wild guess and think that not all 14 people on your team are related to. So, yeah, let's do one question at a time. So let's talk about a little bit about the milestones and kind of the happy, or not necessarily the happy moments, but the high moments of so far of your journey, and then let's continue that with talking about how you actually established like a team of 14 people.
With milestones, I would say there's not a particular moment. Well, actually, I would say the first kind of reward or what makes me feel fulfilled is when an artist who we've written about gets back to us and thanks us for taking the time,
Mm,
but also tells us that we really understood the message behind their music. There's nothing more fulfilling as a writer to know that you interpreted what a musician was trying to say through their lyrics and their sound and just went into that deeper meaning. So
right.
that's something that always makes me happy inside to hear that, and not just only for me but our team of writers who take their time. So we'll talk about our
Hmm.
team in just a bit, but there's been moments like I interviewed Charlie Puth once upon a time, and he said he
Ooh.
was really impressed with our questions. So the questions that we take
Hmm.
time to write and research for, because there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes prior to actually filming and hosting an interview. So that was, I think, a key moment for me. He was kind of at the, I don't want to say peak of his career, but he was like touring with Shawn Mendes at the time. He was gearing up to release
Right.
Voice Notes, his, I think, latest album. But that was a really rewarding point for me as an interviewer, kind of just a bit of validation. I don't like to think of it, it's not just me, but I do put a lot of work into my questions and what goes into an interview. So that was a good moment. Yeah, I would say those two in particular, but a lot of it just comes from everyday artists saying thank you so much for taking the time, because that's just what we do. It doesn't, we don't make, just to kind of note this here, we don't really make money off our website, so it's all fully passion project. So we're thankful for our team who also puts in the time for our content. And that, how did that come about? We reached out probably on places like Twitter and our Facebook pages, and maybe Instagram at
Hmm.
the time if we had it back then. But definitely throughout the course of the 9 years, we've put out call outs on Instagram. Hey, anyone interested in joining our team as a writer or photographer? And for them, it's volunteer work. They're not getting
Yeah.
paid. So it's kind of difficult to find people. But what we offer is a platform where people can get into shows and take concerts and really just build up a resume. So I think that's what we kind of market it as to potential team members. But that's what it is. We don't call them like staff or anything. We call them a team because it's really a large effort that goes into the day-to-day postings on our website. And so that's how we started. I would say we've definitely experienced turnover throughout the years, but people go off and do different things. A lot of people on our team don't do photography full time. Most of it, or writing full time. A lot
Hmm.
of it's their hobbies and passions as well. And we've just been fortunate to find people whose values align with our own in terms of providing coverage on local musicians. They're not writing about who's a famous artist. They're not writing about Billie Eilish or I don't know, Lil Nas X. I think those are
Yeah.
popular artists right now, but
Yes, they
that's
are.
not
I
who
agree. I agree.
that's not who they're writing on, and they're fine with it, and they're fine with listening to independent artists and really getting into the meaning of their music. And not saying that those artists are bad artists in any means, it's just more mainstream. So we're fortunate
Yeah.
to have people. We honestly haven't quote unquote hired people for a while now, so that just speaks, I think, to the longevity that people have stuck with our team, and we're forever grateful for that.
Hmm.
But if we do reach out in the future, we probably would still be using places like Instagram or just word of mouth. Some of the people who have joined our team have been friends or acquaintances of other like photographers, for example. So they've kind of come on board, and it's been pretty seamless, I would say. So, yeah, definitely some turnover, but people have, I think some people have been with us almost since I want to say 2013. We have a writer named
Wow.
Kazi. So shout out to Kazi, who's kind of stuck with us. And it's been nice because we've kind of seen people evolve as content creators
Yeah,
as
their
well.
growth.
Yeah, so it's been fun.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. And I think as well, like you mentioned, a couple of key things there when it comes to the different, I guess, artists that they could actually be exposed to, because definitely, obviously, the mainstream, um, you know, music, I guess, or the mainstream artists, for lack of a better word, you hear those, day in, day out, whether you're on TikTok, whether you're listening to on the radio, whether you're on, other platforms such as YouTube, etc. You're probably going to get more exposure to, the Billie Eilish and the Lil Nas X and stuff like that, etc. Just using your examples, but as opposed to the independent artists local to the community, right? The people that potentially could be your neighbor, or something like something like that, or people that are local to within the scene. And I think for those people who are really passionate again about learning more about the community, learning more about music, your platform is a great opportunity to be involved in, right? Because you do get that exposure. And obviously you get a little bit exposure outside of just the local Vancouver area as well. So it's a little bit of best of both worlds, right? A little Hannah Montana reference there. I'm aging myself too with that quote probably. But if you don't know Hannah Montana, yeah, they're definitely on the younger side, to say to say the least. But no, I'm happy to hear, and as well, like when it comes to the team side of things, I've had similar experiences. Only really brought against someone on board maybe once or twice so far in the last 3 years of Beneath Vancouver. But yeah, same with you. It's been kind of just as a passion for that individual, whether they want to learn more about dealing with potential clients, right? When we did a lot more photo and video work for smaller businesses, etc. How to actually run a platform, how to do outreach, all these different skills that I think a lot of potential I'm going to use this term loosely, like traditional jobs or traditional internships. Again, that's not by any means downplaying those other jobs or internships that people could get, but it's just a different experience, right? You're dealing with someone who potentially is roughly within your age group too, right? And is also learning along the way, and I feel like you kind of grow alongside with them. So I think the importance of that is valuable, and obviously the writers and your teams and everything like that shows the testament of how good of a job you're doing. If they're staying for 8+ years, you're doing something right, Chloe. I think you're doing something right. So I give you a huge kudos for that. So round of
Thank
applause.
you. Thank you. I really honestly don't think of it as that. I don't know what's kept them around, but I do like what you've mentioned in terms of just I think it's valuable experience, right?
Hmm.
And it's kind of like niche markets, kind of what
Yeah.
we're doing. And then I'm sure with you in the kind of video and production, but it's really more hands-on experience, and you kind of feel like there's a bit of a friendship involved too, because similar
Hmm.
people, people similar in age. So yeah, it's it's
Yeah, as you
funny to
said, it's
think
not
about. Yeah,
necessarily yes, like staff or anything like that. At the
yeah,
end of the day, it's just like, yeah, team member, and you're there together working, regardless if you're like the founder or the writer or whatever. Everyone's there for the same purpose. Put the titles aside. Like obviously everyone's doing different jobs, but titles aside, like everyone's there to create the best kind of content that you could create for whatever niche you're in, right? In your case, obviously it's artist based, and for myself, it's photo, video, and audio based. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's everyone's there to learn, everyone's there to try different things. And if the thing is as well, like if it doesn't work out in the sense in a year or 2 years or however long, months maybe, they decide to go in another direction, they'll still be grateful of the work that you've allowed them to learn, and the experiences that they have learned as well along the way. And a good friend of mine, shout out to Aaron, like he was one of yeah, he was the first person that I brought on back in 2019 for BV, very early days. And he's still very appreciative of the work that he learned and the experiences that he learned, and everything like that. So it's helped him, open different doors and different opportunities. So you never know. But without further kind of lingering on that topic, unfortunately, we are nearing the end of our episode here. So as again, all the listeners know, if you're a regular, you already know what's coming up. If you're a new listener, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Or if you're on a streaming platform, make sure to give us a rating and let me know if you've enjoyed today's episode. But without increasing any more plugs or shilling out, Chloe, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self and why?
I kind of touched on this at the beginning, but trust the process. I know it sounds generic, but really just knowing that the hard work and effort you put into something, you can come out of it with so many rewarding experiences. So if you told me in 2012 or even 2013, like the first kind of full year of the website, that I'd get to talk to actors from my favorite movies, like Dominic Monaghan from The Lord of the Rings or William Moseley from the Chronicles of Narnia series, I would have said, "You're joking. I will never be able to speak to those people in the duration of our website," but I have, and it's been so cool to pick their brains and talk about their projects. And that's been something that I've really thought about a lot, especially over the 9 years. It's a big time commitment. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've been fortunate to have like supportive family, especially my parents, and Natalie's parents as well. But they've really let us do what we wanted to do with the website. But the time it takes, like, I think about maybe missing out on social situations and things at my other jobs or maybe throughout university because I've put so much into the website. But it really does make it worth it to hear how grateful artists are that we do what we do and we write about them and we figure out the meanings of their songs. And so yeah, just trusting the process that you'll come out of it with so many new experiences. And it's really helped me personally grow with communication skills and networking and feeling more comfortable reaching out and doing things like this. So again, thank you for having me. Just a little note there. But trusting the process and don't let social media comments get to you. It's self-explanatory. I don't want to get too deep into it, but being on camera during interviews, it people are critical sometimes, and I've tried to be a lot better, especially over the past year and a bit. I think I've been growing as an interviewer too and being able to hold conversations, but people on social media can be kind of mean sometimes. So just growing thicker skin and not having people's comments get to you and just feeling confident and comfortable in what you put out there. So those would be the two pieces of advice.
I like it. I like it a lot. And yes, very true. There's definitely been times where, aside from the podcast, like I create other styles of content, like very, very dabbled in YouTube, very, very little. One, I think I only have like 3 videos, but you're always kind of critical of yourself. And then obviously when you see a comment that's critical of you, you're always thinking to yourself, like, did I do something wrong? Did.
It
But
doesn't help, right?
yeah, it doesn't help. Just have fun with it. And I think, you're not going to please everyone. That's just the name of the game. There's, I don't know how many billion people in this world now, but I think maybe 7. Don't quote me on that. If I'm far off, I'm gonna be really embarrassed. But I might get critical comments of that, right? Aaron doesn't know how many people are in this world, stuff like that. So I'm assuming that's what internet trolls sound like. But back to what I was saying, it's yeah, like you're going to be your biggest self-critic, right? So that in itself is already a difficult kind of thing to overcome. So adding on top of that another layer of criticism, and sometimes it is constructive, like if it's, for example, like lower the I remember in the first couple of episodes of the podcast, like my audio levels were all over the place, or I spoke very quickly and people were like, sounds like you're trying to finish like a speed run of how quick you can finish this episode, right? So it's that kind of criticism, I'll take, to make the content better. And at the end of the day, those are the people that I'm hoping will enjoy the content, right? So I want to make sure that it's better for them. But when it's not as constructive, obviously that can be also a little bit difficult to swallow. And as I said earlier, you're not going to please everyone, right? So all these people in this world, there's bound to be, unfortunately, people who got nothing better to do than to, throw a couple of mean comments or troll comments to whether it be your YouTube video or your your photography or whatever the case might be. But as long as you're true to yourself and as you said, have that thick skin. If you're a creator, you have to have thick skin no matter what. It's just unfortunately the world that we live in. I've been, thankful enough to, in the 3-ish years that I've been doing creative work, I haven't gotten that many trolls or that many, mean comments. But if I do, I just try to, brush them off and just move on to the next piece of content that you want to create. So as long as you're enjoying the process, enjoying what you're doing, having fun as well. I mean, I'm sure you have fun or else you wouldn't be doing it for 9 years. I say the same thing to myself where people ask me like, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, well, podcasts for about 3 years now. And they're like, wow, like, you must really enjoy it. I'm like, yeah, I do enjoy it, or else I wouldn't be in episode 64. If I didn't enjoy it, I would have quit in episode like 2 or 3. So, obviously not here to preach or anything like that, but I think those are very important aspects that you've touched upon, and I'm thankful that you've brought that up, because there's a lot of young creators out there as well, right? Especially as again we move into more of a digital era, people on TikTok creators that are 14, 15, right? I mean, high school's already rough as it is potentially, right? On top of that, now you're getting a bunch of different people being mean to you online that you don't even know, right? So it's not as sunshine and rainbows as people might think when it comes to putting yourself out there online. So I'm thankful that you brought that up, Chloe. I really do appreciate it. As we wrap up here, I do want to give you, as well as I do for all my other guests, a moment of shameless plugs, so to speak. If you want to go ahead and let people know where they can find you, any other shout outs that you want to give, now's your time to shine.
Well, I would like to say that I'm in this with my sister Natalie. So she's not here today. We both used to live here in like the Vancouver area, but now she lives in Kelowna. So that's been difficult.
Oh, wow.
Everything's basically remote, even our communications back and forth to one another. So thank you to Natalie for for
Hopefully she's
sticking
okay
in
with the
this.
fires and everything.
Yeah, she is okay, but I will know it's been kind of rough over there. I know for a lot of
Yeah.
people in like West Kelowna, and yeah, I think it's getting better because we did get some, or they also might have gotten some more rain. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of people are still on alert over there. So thinking of everyone
Mm.
in the Okanagan and the
Yeah.
surrounding areas. But on a lighter note, thank you to Natalie for doing this with me for 9+ years. We are hoping to go to 10 at least. We'll see where it goes from there. And then shameless plugs. We are on our main website is thepermanentrainpress.com, and we are on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PR Press. So that's just the, what do you call it, the handle for all of
Yes.
those. And
Consistent branding. I like it.
yes, I think that was important for us because nowadays it's hard to get consistent branding across platforms because you're always going to have to add like an
Hmm.
underscore or like a number or something to it. But we're fortunate because we started so long ago that it stays consistent. But I would say YouTube, check us out. We
Yeah.
post all our video interviews there. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, shout out to Natalie as well, for also growing the PR press alongside Chloe and the rest of the team as well for doing the amazing work that you all continue to do. And I have no doubt that you'll reach 10 years. I'll do maybe some sort of update episode by then as well to see kind of how's everything, a little 10-year anniversary powwow. But hopefully things are a little bit more open to and we can actually, meet in person and maybe do one of these in person as well. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to, as per usual, all the websites, handles, etc. for social media will be available in the YouTube description down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on a streaming platform, it'll be available in the podcast description as well. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Down below. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And similar experience to Chloe here as well, right? We continue to do this here. And by we, I guess really the podcast portion is just me. So, but I think at the end of the day, we as in like a community, right? Because it's not just me talking, it's guests like Chloe, guests like the last 62 that I've had in the previous episodes. That's the we aspect. It's a community effort. I'm just the host and the person that loves to talk. So I've been grateful enough to have the opportunity to do this, right, and to be able to share people's stories in a format that if you asked me 5 years ago, would you be doing a podcast now? I actually always wanted to do one, and it wasn't until I bit the bullet and kind of went for it that you never know where it's going to take you. And here I am 3 years later. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I really do appreciate your support. Again, one last final thing: if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. It does help me out. But other than that, hopefully you have a great rest of your day. Chloe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Take care.